All right, so let's talk about where you can find your tools. This is Zoom. It's a little different from Teams, and it's way different from WebEx. Your tools are located at the bottom of the screen. So down in the left-hand corner is the microphone. That's where you mute and unmute your phone. I ask that you please stay muted throughout the presentation. Next over is the camera. That is where you can turn on your video. I ask that you keep your video off to save bandwidth. And if you move over a little further, about midway, there is the chat, and just click on the chat. That will open up to the right, and that is where you can submit your questions, your comments, your responses. This is also where we will submit responses, helpful links, and resources. And this is where you can reach out to me. Send me a message in chat if you need technical support. You may also reach out to me in Teams. That's all I needed to cover. Now I would like to welcome our presenters for today, Stefan Nofield and Dee Hewitt.
Hi, welcome everyone. I want to thank you for your interest in the National Park Service and our Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And since it's kind of a long name, we'll oftentimes refer to it as RTCA. My name is Stefan Nofield. I'm your co-host for this webinar, and I'm streaming out of Washington, D.C. I'm also the RTCA National Program Manager for this unique government service that we're going to be sharing with you today. But before we introduce our other co-host and get underway, we wanted to just touch on two big questions that we are frequently asked about, just to clear up this. The first one is, does RTCA provide funding for conservation and outdoor recreation projects? And no, we do not provide financial assistance or monetary grants. As a collaborative partner with your team, we provide professional services to help achieve your conservation and outdoor recreation project. That said, our staff will help identify potential funding strategies to help make your project a reality. And then the second question we get asked all the time that I want to be really clear about is, what is the cost of RTCA services? We do not charge our project partners for our services, although we do require that your community and agency is committed to leading the project, making available staff and other necessary resources, and in engaging the community throughout the process. Our RTCA team will align our professional planning, design, and technical expertise with your team to help fill gaps and to incorporate knowledge experts from the community. Dee?
Good afternoon. I'm your other host, Dee Hewitt, and I'm the Regional Program Manager from Atlanta, Georgia. It's a pleasure to share this hour with you and all that are joining us. Thank you and welcome. Before we dive into the webinar, let's get an idea of who's joining us today. We have a quick poll that will take about 1 minute to respond, and there are 2 questions to help us learn more about our audience.
So we would like to give you a minute to answer these 2 questions and submit, and we'll have the results instantly. So Dee, start the clock.
There's questions in the chat.
Yes, I see responses in the chat. There's a certain version of Zoom. You might not have the most updated version of Zoom. I apologize. So you may not be able to view the poll.
Okay, but we'll report you out the poll. So we have about another 15 seconds for the poll, and then we're going to show the results.
And I apologize for that. The questions were, how familiar are you with the program? And what type of assistance are you interested in learning more about?
Feel free to post a response in the chat if you're not able to see the poll.
Okay, Dee, all yours.
Okay. So the majority of those that answered the poll said they're not so much knowledgeable about the program. They're very new to RTCA. The highest ranking of what project types of assistance are you interested in were building healthy communities through parks and trails. The next highest would be supporting collaboration with public land managers.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, thank you all. So the webinar today will really accomplish three things. One, a primer about the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. A presentation about the diversity of our services and some examples of how those services are applied, as well as highlighting the application process. And then we'll answer your questions. And we've captured a bunch of questions that were submitted during the RSVP process. And we'll also be taking your questions in the chat as well. So we'll go back and forth so we can try to cover as many of the questions that came through.
Okay. So we wanted to just say that RTCA services are aligned with national key initiatives, such as addressing a changing climate, providing access to outdoor recreation on all public lands, increasing conservation on lands and waters across the US, and working to provide close to home parks, outdoor recreation and conservation areas, and communities that are underserved by these assets.
And just so everyone can understand, the RTCA program contributes to the National Park Service mission and really in two key ways. One, we help project partners by accomplish what they need to do, which extends the benefits of parks to communities across the country. And then the second thing we're really focused on is trying to move the needle across the US on conservation and outdoor recreation.
RTCA has been serving communities and public land managers for more than 30 years. The program provides assistance to locally led conservation and outdoor recreation projects through an annual application process that closes on March 1st of each year. In addition, we provide natural disaster recovery assistance after wildfires, hurricanes, and other devastating events.
Our model essentially is we go where we're invited in. We accept projects where our staff can help provide skills and experience that complements those of your team. And our team consists of planners, landscape architects, community outreach specialists, and natural resource specialists.
We encourage strong partnership and meaningful community engagement throughout the project. To receive RTCA services, the applicant must demonstrate their ability to work with other partners with shared goals, and together they invest their time and resources into the project.
Our program believes that connecting to the natural world is a fundamental human need and essential to our well-being.
We desire to help preserve special places in the American stories. We believe in creating a system of parks from close to home neighborhood parks to regional, state, federal, public lands and parks.
And we also embrace community-led conservation and outdoor recreation efforts that requires local leadership, knowledge, and local energy.
We believe that leaving the world a better place is much more achievable when we all work together. We encourage bringing in many partners with shared goals to together help ensure the long-term success of your project.
Okay, so our services can be clumped into 5 categories that you saw in the poll. And we're going to walk through these categories and our focus areas within each of these categories. So we work to help build healthy communities. Hell, we got a bunch of different ways to share. We help conserve lands and waters. We help develop organizational capacity. We support public land management collaboration and projects that engage youth. And so now we're going to switch from our PowerPoint to a publication we produce and have available on our website that will help show you the various services that we take on. So thanks for bearing with us. Oh, well done. So the first category, building healthy communities. And that's start with Dee.
We begin by highlighting the various RTCA services that work to build healthy communities. Our team works to create a system of parks for all. Working with communities across the country, RTCA helped to create and restore more than 1 million acres of parks. On the island of St. Paul in the Bering Sea, we assisted the community in planning a park that was a once worn out baseball field and now has a diversity of opportunities that benefit the entire community. We also helped the Maidu tribe in the Sierra Mountains in developing a cultural park dedicated to education, healing, and ecosystem management while preserving sacred grounds and resources.
And then trails. RTCA works with partners to create a network of trails for public health and enjoyment. Here's 2 examples just to highlight. We took a rail and made it into a trail, abandoned rail line, made it into trail in Kingston, New York, for community access and recreation opportunities. But we also can work on larger landscapes, such as we helped plan 354 miles of trails in the Blue Mountain region of Southeast Washington State and Northeast Oregon.
Our team also helps facilitate public access for the public to explore our nation's waterways. We supported a multi-state regional effort to create water recreational opportunities on the Tennessee River. We also facilitated communities throughout the Cuyahoga River watershed to develop and implement strategies of providing public access points, signage, information, and river monitoring that led to significant increase in local access and the enjoyment of the Cuyahoga.
And then accessibility. We work with project partners to develop equitable access to our nation's lands and water, such as in South Carolina on the right side of the page, developing these accessible launches along the Saluda River Blueway.
We also assist communities in developing outdoor recreational strategies that support community health goals. We've worked with local health communities in developing park prescription programs. That program provides doctors with a database of area parks, trails, and other outdoor recreational opportunities. Then the doctor incorporates that information when prescribing close to home outdoor activities as part of the patient's treatment.
And our team also takes on projects that preserve cultural connections to lands and water. In Africa Town, located in Mobile, Alabama, you may have heard about this. So it had the last slave ship that reached the US shores. RTCA staff helped the community explore ways to reconnect their culture to the adjacent waterways and to share that history. Over time, that community was impacted by environmental justice issues such as paper mills and other things that really dissected that community, and they're working to regain and bring their community back to history. And then another example is we helped evolve a 9-mile trail in Chicago that commemorates the heritage of the indigenous people who had lived in that area.
This is also something that's near and dear to my heart, being in the Southeast region. We help revitalize communities after they recover from natural disasters. We help communities restore their parks, conservation areas, outdoor recreation facilities, and work to improve their resiliency in the changing climate.
And then the last under this big category of healthy communities is looking at underutilized spaces. We work with local governments and nonprofits to repurpose vacant lands, abandoned lands, and restore them as either parks, community gardens, or other shared open spaces that really become community assets. Example is in Lawrence, Massachusetts. The city and the nonprofit organizations worked with RTCA, or we worked with them actually, to restore these blighted lands along the Spigot River and created a Emerald Greenway through the city of Lawrence. In Oregon City, we recently helped transform a plot of land that was an old concrete swimming pool that was never used anymore into this really beautiful neighborhood park. So utilize spaces. Okay, so our next category is in preserving lands and waters. Dee?
We begin with our climate change adaptation, where we assist communities in becoming resilient to a changing climate. The Lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans, Louisiana was flooded and destroyed by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Working with Sankofa Community Development Corporation, RTCA helped develop a set of climate resilience strategies. We facilitated a master plan and design to transform a 40-acre vacant lot into a conservation recreation area that integrates nature-based climate resiliency solutions to improve protection from future hurricanes and flooding events.
We also help communities and public land managers in developing local and regional conservation strategies. We work with partners to expand conservation networks, develop land protection strategies, and restore damaged ecosystems. A couple examples in Corpus Christi, Texas, North Beach Eco Park. It's a major habitat for part of the North American Flyway. We helped plan and envision how to restore those lands in an urban area to help support the migratory bird habitat there. In Utah, we convened and helped facilitate state and federal partners in an effort to restore portions of the Jordan River that have been modified and polluted by a now abandoned steel mill.
We also work to restore rivers to their natural systems. We facilitate the collaboration of technical experts to help implement strategies that restore rivers in riparian areas. In Alaska in the 1920s, construction of a railroad access to mining areas resulted in the rerouting of Moose Creek and established numerous barriers that blocked salmon migration. In 2003, the Chickaloon Village Council asked RTCA to help facilitate restoration of the Moose Creek fisheries. Working with other federal and state agencies, Moose Creek has been restored to its natural waterways, the barriers have been removed, and the salmon have returned to their natural spawning grounds.
Okay, our next category is developing organizational capacity and collaboration services. So in order to ensure that projects that you and us work on together will last into perpetuity, we provide several services. The first one is collaboration services. And an example of that would be the Eastern Sierra Sustainable Recreation Partnerships, where the counties in the Eastern Sierra, 3 national forests, 5 national parks, and the local communities have formed this collaborative, are working together, and they've been successful at generating a lot of funds to help the recreation and conservation environment from the California land bond bill that exists there. So building these regional collaborative large landscape collaborations, I keep saying that, is one of the newer things we've been starting to do because we realize working on a larger landscape pays bigger dividend. And then Dee, I'll let you do the next one. Yeah.
We also provide organizational development support by helping to establish an organization or build strategies to grow that organization with the goal of strengthening their capacity to ensure that the project is maintained and it flourishes. Examples include helping Recreate Responsibly Coalition evolve strategic plan. And another example is that we facilitated a strategic planning process to help Latino Outdoors expand their reach.
And then we support public land management collaboration. Again, kind of going back to that idea that I was describing just moments ago about this larger landscape. But RTCA works with public land managers on projects that connect public lands to local communities. We look at, for example, on national parks, we look at linking parks to a larger landscape of conservation and outdoor recreation, and collaborating with communities who have shared goals as the parks may have. And then the next slide, if you would.
We also work with other state, local, and federal land managers with their conservation and outdoor recreational needs. In Alaska, as for example, we supported nonprofits and state and federal agencies in the development of a statewide trails investment strategy.
And then our last category of services is about engaging youth. And the first one is youth program development. Let me just give you an example of what that means, because we don't want to do one-off youth programs. We want to develop programs that are going to last into the future. An example is in the state of Maine, we helped form a nonprofit that calls themselves Teens to Trails. And that nonprofit started with 1 or 2 high schools and getting high school students into the outdoors and training them with outdoor skills that are going to last a lifetime. And since then, that nonprofit has now grown and is in every school in the state of Maine and is looking to expand into other states. So that's an example of a youth program development. And then the next slide is youth stewardship. Our team of professionals across the country oftentimes encourage communities to bring teens into the planning process so we get their point of view and their engagement and the skill building for them as well in conservation and outdoor recreation planning. Okay, we're going to switch back to our PowerPoint. And again, the slides you just saw are from our RTCA publication that's available at our website. And you can download that and take a closer look at those various examples to see how they might align with your particular need.
And now the big question is, how do you apply? Well, we have 4 steps on how to apply. The first one we say is explore the document that is in your chat and read. It's how we work with partners to develop conservation and outdoor recreation. The second is to contact your NPS RTCA manager to discuss your project. This is an important step. I see so many of you guys have questions about your specific project. This is the time to talk to someone to see if you're ready, if your project has the requirements, but also to see if we are a good fit for your project. It might not be us, it might be someone else. It might be another entity, it might be another agency that we can help you start that collaboration process. The third is to download and complete the RTCA application. Finally, email the application to us, to the program manager representing your state. The application needs to include, of course, the completed application, a site location map. We're not asking for anything very fancy, although if you do have fancy, that's great. Sometimes it's just a Google map and showing where the project is located. But that would help us with visualizing your project. We also ask for a minimum of 3 commitment letters. that describe each partner's role, responsibility, and contribution. These are not support letters. These are commitment letters. These are people that are saying, I am working on this project and I commit to being and attending these meetings. I commit to my resources, my staff, my time, my knowledge, and my skills. The fourth is optional supplemental information that can help us learn more about your project. And please note, the applications are due March 1st of every year. Our selection criteria includes, we want your project to have accomplished noticeable results that promote natural conservation and outdoor recreation. We want to ensure that your roles and contribution of your project partner, as well as yourself, are significant and well-defined. There also needs to be evidence of broad community support for the project. And we also ask that the project fits within our service areas. Here are our website information. The application is at www.mps.gov/RTCA. You will also find contacts for your state and the program manager. You will also find other projects that we have worked on and see if they are similar to something that you need, or just to give you more information about our varied skill sets that we bring to projects.
Right. Thanks, Dee. And before we get into questions and answers, I just want to highlight, we find that there's usually a project lead, but there's other organizations in the community that have a shared goal. And those are the partners that we're looking for so that we can take advantage of the widest skills and abilities and knowledge experts within the community. So that's why we ask that you identify some partners who have a shared goal of helping to implement this project, and what are they going to bring to the table. And that's what we mean by these commitment letters.
And I'd also just like to add, Stefan.
Yeah, please.
Even if you have an idea and you don't know how to go about it, if you don't have that broad evidence of support, or you don't know who your partners are, that's the time to reach out to us, because we can help with those. We can help with seeing, again, what partners should you start talking to? Again, it might not be that you're ready for the March 1st deadline, but we can help you develop an application for the next go around. So please just even reach out to us if you have an idea and you're not quite sure how to implement it.
Thanks, Dee. Okay, so we're going to stop sharing our slide program and just get into questions and answers. We've had quite a few questions that came in with the RSVPs. And so we're going to begin answering those. If you have other questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and Heather's going to read them to us as we go through this. So Dee and I are just going to start with some questions that came in through the chat. And these are questions that are going to relate to the application and the review process. So Dee, I'm going to take the first one, and you can follow the next one, and we'll trade off, tag team. So the first question we got is there a match requirement? No, we don't have a match requirement. Although, again, we require your community our agency to have someone who leads the project, brings their own resources to the table, and we will help fill the gaps of skills and knowledge that's needed on a particular project. So you still have a commitment, but we don't require actually a match.
And your resources could be available staff, meeting space, all of that. We're not saying resources as monetary. So the second question is, how many projects for technical assistance will be accepted by MPS? So this is a good question. The number of projects accepted are based upon, one, is the request within the range of services that we provide? Two, do we have the staff capacity to commit to this project? We also consider, do we have the staff capacity to meet your timeline? The project is also expected to accomplish noticeable results in the near future. We also look for the roles and contribution of each project partner are significant and well-defined. We also look for, again, if the evidence of broad community support for the project.
Gosh, I get the easy questions. Is this an annual program? Yes, this is an annual program with the deadline of March 1st each year.
And how long, next question is, how long is the review process? In most cases, we will have an answer the first Monday in May, probably May 1st. During this process, our teams review the application. We also reach back out to that project applicant to ensure that we're answering all of the questions, that your application is robust. Then as teams, we review the application, we review and then also make sure of who has the best skill set for your project. Continuing that, then we also need to we try to do a site visit, or we try to learn and understand more about your projects. Then we come to the conclusion of which projects that will be accepted in the next year.
How long does RTCA provide support for a project? And this is really based on our staff capacity and the complexity of a project. And so we have projects that take 1 year to 4 years to accomplish. Most of our projects, I say, take about 1 to 2 years to wrap up.
The next question is, who can apply for assistance? We provide services to community groups, nonprofit organizations, tribal governments, national parks, public land managers, and local and state and federal agencies. I would just add to that, who we do not apply, service are those for-profit. If the area or the project or park or outdoor recreation is going to be charged, we do not, or if it's Disneyland asking us to help, we need to make sure that everyone is open and available to use anything that we help create.
Do projects which have received technical assistance from RTCA have a higher preference in the review process? No, they don't. Although we sometimes do agree upon taking a project in phases over a longer period of time. But otherwise, we don't have a criteria that ranks those projects higher in the review process. And then our last question before we'll go back to the chat. Dee?
What are the RTCA project priorities for this particular cycle of applications for technical assistance? Luckily, our current national key initiatives relate very closely to our service area model. They are, again, addressing a changing climate, providing access to outdoor recreation on all public lands, increasing conservation on lands and waters across the US, and working to provide close to home parks, outdoor recreation and conservation areas in communities that are underserved by these assets.
Okay, thanks, Dee. So Heather's been tracking the chat. Heather, do you have some questions from the chat for us to try to bat?
Yeah, there are several great questions coming in. So we'll go with, our primary need is for coordination with the MPS at Colonial National Historical Park on NEPA compliance for a trail project that will go through the park. Do you help with NEPA?
No, we leave that part to our partners in park planning and special studies to coordinate planning within national parks and to do the compliance within the environmental compliance within national parks. But if your project had something relating to the communities nearby and evolving a trail system to those communities, that's where we would get more involved in the design, routing, location, and generating community support for that kind of a project.
Okay, the next one. Can a project focus on trails and creek restoration?
Yes. Short answer is yes. We would also, again, look at our skill sets of what person in our group can help with that. And then again, if we don't have those skill sets, we bring in other experts to help with the stream restoration, to help with identification of those issues that may be causing the stream to erode. So yes, that is a project we can work on.
Hey, Heather, before we go on, we had a couple other national park questions, so let me just capture those real quick that came in before, if I may. National Park Service employees with community outreach as my primary duty would like to learn about the application process and engage localities in Oklahoma to assist them in identification and application process. That's awesome outreach. We would partner with the parks there to help do that outreach in those communities. So if that's the answer to that. Can funds be used beyond the national natural landmark boundaries? This is a special designation for natural landmarks. We provide technical assistance. We have no grant funds to distribute, although we would work with national parks and their programs on projects on a larger landscape with other partners that have those shared goals. So if you're looking to expand the landmark boundaries and you're trying to build some support and need some facilitation related to that, we can help in that manner. And then two other questions related to parks, and then we'll move to the National Park Service, and we'll move on to others. We are working on a multi-jurisdictional trail that passes through several national parks and would like help coordinating the NEPA and preliminary design work. I think we answered that with Colonial. We don't do design within the parks, but if you have a long distance trail that you're going through parks and other public lands, we would help facilitate the collaboration and evolution of that, but we wouldn't do the environmental compliance on that. And then finally, does technical assistance include providing park units with guidance on how to treat erosion problems on their trails that already exist? Yeah, we actually have many staff who are skilled in managing water and erosion things on trails, and they can help consult with your park staff on those issues. And if we don't have them, we also have partner organizations across the country that we work with on various trail projects that have those skills and abilities. Okay, Heather, if you go back to the chat.
Okay, thanks for grabbing those, Stefan. Have you ever assisted with putting a plan together? You just addressed that, for putting together a Rails and Trails project. Can a project apply and receive multiple types of service from RTCA, for example, support with trails planning and capacity building?
Yeah, Dee?
Yes, we can. We would make sure that it follows into what's first. When we work together with our partners, we develop what's called a work plan, and then we also do a timeline. With those, we come up with what stakeholders that are missing. We also come up with what and how the organization might need to be developed, the collaboration that's needed. If it is helping with developing a 501(c)(3), we have examples. We also show the pitfalls, the downfalls, all of the other issues that people have been in the same situation that you are starting with. I would say that we have a great array, because we are across the country, of how projects have started, what have been their issues, what has been the deciding points and the downfalls with organizations. So not only can we bring together our skills, but we also have this vast knowledge of how other projects have succeeded and failed.
Heather?
Trying to catch them all here, Stefan. Okay.
Okay. If you need a minute, I can go back to other questions we had.
Well, I did see one coming up about engineering drawings.
Yeah, what about engineering drawings, Dee?
Heather. One thing that we do is all of our work is conceptual. We do a conceptual plan, we do a conceptual design. We do not compete with the private sector with doing the engineering designs. What you would do is take our conceptual plan to an engineering or landscape architect firm and have those created for you to implement.
Yeah, and I just want to say probably one of the biggest challenges, which is a great niche for us, is figuring out what the vision is. What is the community or the partner or the public land manager wanting to do? What are some strategies to make that happen? And then get a decision on what that is and conceptualize what it's going to be. Otherwise, the design and the construct are more tangible and are easy to do. It's just getting the community to come together on that vision and articulating it well. And that's where we play well in. And a lot of firms just don't want to spend the time in the to make that happen, because it takes a lot of time to build these visions and to get community support for these visions. Heather, did you want to give us another one, or should I continue with the RSVP questions?
Does this program support outdoor recreation strategic planning efforts?
Yes, 100%. And we're taking on a new project in Southern Oregon where we're helping them think through of how to be a gateway to year-round destination for outdoor recreation on an area that's mixed with public and private land. So that's just one example of some that we do.
We also help with organizations achieve their strategic goals. 1 year, 5 years, also to make it sustainable. What are you looking for? What is it that you plan to do? That's the biggest part of our organizational development, is to stand up that organization so that when we do leave, that this organization is hardy and can implement everything on that we have developed in that strategic plan.
I'm going to hit on just for a minute some climate resiliency and green infrastructure questions that came through. First one was, I'm interested in whether Technical Assistance could contribute to a green infrastructure plan. And the answer is yes. In fact, we're more and more today, we look at the conservation outdoor recreation projects we do, and we start using that as a filter. What green infrastructure would help support this and help this project into perpetuity or into a long period of time? So I just want to give you an example of some. We are working on projects to cool cities down. So in Honolulu, we're helping this large neighborhood increase their tree canopy to 35%. Right now it's down to 13. And we're building strategies. We're implementing those with the nonprofits in that community and creating these canopies to help do that. Same things with rain gardens and other types of techniques. And the best thing about creating parks, and we oftentimes don't think about this, but parks can provide ecosystem services related to localized flooding. And the place to go get money oftentimes for creating that park is the Water and Sewer Board to help manage those overflows that they have to contend with. So just think about that. If you're thinking about parks, who else has an interest in what ecosystem services and infrastructure, green infrastructures that can be planned? Oh, you know what? That's the only question I had on green infrastructure. Back to you, Heather.
All right. Is there a limitation on how many projects can be open in any given state or a specific time?
No. We have multiple projects going on in multiple areas of the state. It again just depends on what our capacity for us accepting new projects, but it does not, we don't have a limitation on how many can be in a state or an area. If it is an area though, we do ask that for just, not just for us, for the biggest bang of our help, but we're looking at a small project and then another small project, for us to combine them, because that also not only helps with our resources, but it helps with your organization's resources of not having to burn people out, but also in the bigger scheme of things with funding, you would want to show that you have a regional or a citywide approach instead of just small projects that you would like to fund.
I got a couple planning questions that came in early that I want to emphasize, because we find RTCA is more effective in working in small and medium-sized cities and rural areas. Big cities like New York City, we just get lost there. You know, they have so much resources themselves that we're more effective. We have a bigger bang in doing our conservation outdoor recreation projects in these smaller communities. So the city of Coos Bay, Oregon, this is a question, is in need of an update of a city parks master plan, which includes waterfront trails, city parks, open spaces within the city. Might this grant opportunity be available to the city? Yes, that would be a project that's within our service. And especially in a small community like Coos Bay, we recognize that there's not a lot of municipal capacity to do that kind of planning in those communities, and oftentimes involve volunteer boards and so forth. So we're happy to come into those communities and convene and facilitate that planning process. Another one which was awfully excited to see came from, I don't know who it was, but the question is this: I have a big request to get a bike trail from Stayton through Lyons up to Mill City, Oregon. There's an old road to the south of Highway 22 that could be used and blah, blah, blah. But it would take a lot of different governments to be involved. How do we get started? Well, that surprised me because we've been working on projects related to the Oregon wildfires. And this is one of the projects that Marion County and Oregon have identified. And so I was excited to see that you've asked that question. I hope you're here on the call today. And we're already we're scoping out who are all the major stakeholders who have an interest in this, so we can build a model bringing the right groups and people together for this incredible opportunity that goes up an area of the Santiam Canyon in Oregon that was burned out by those horrible fires in 2020. And then finally, I have one more community one. We have a vacant county-owned 5-acre parcel that the community would like to turn into a park. We're a small rural community of 750 people. Numerous community members would like to have it turned into a park or something before housing develops on it. Yeah, this is another great project for RTCA to help the local partners to look at the issues, concerns, and opportunities of what could be done with that 5-acre parcel, build community support for a planning and vision, and come up with a strategy to make that park happen. Heather, I'll go back to you for more from the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. And I just want to add, we're getting a flood of questions here. And while we might not address all of these at once, this report will be shared with the team. So we'll get back to you. You'll get your answer. But I do have one here. What is an example of evidence of public support for the purpose of the application?
Yeah, Dee.
What we look for that is that if you don't have it yet, say again, if it's your idea, it's finding other like-minded people, what other organizations might be involved or want to involve. Do you have evidence of, say, a park or a vacant lot that no one's using, but they do use it for recreation, or they're using it to walk through, or sidewalks and paths? What we are looking for the broad support is, again, making sure that it's just not an idea in a bottle that you want this and maybe others might not want it. But again, it's part of the process. If you meet with us earlier enough before the March 1st deadline, we can help you develop that broad support. We can help you look for it, making sure you get out there. We also do a gamut of skills. We just don't only do project assistance. If you need us to come out and talk to an organization, talk to your city government, talk to a nonprofit, your local organizations, to tell them about what we do if they weren't able to join this video chat today. We also do that, and we go out and we talk to just about everybody to bring that broad evidence of support on. So if you're not there quite yet in the project where it's a great idea and everybody's on board, but no one wants to start it up, we can help you get to that point also.
Yeah, and I just want to say, after May, once we select this year's next set of projects, feel free to contact us at any time throughout the year to start exploring for the next round. We really do our outreach beginning in October, but we're open all the time to just help keep the process moving and help you figure out what you desire to do. Heather?
I'm going to run to one of the questions that we had beforehand of the collaboration. How to collaborate with local organizations in trail development and management, and how can a bike shop help with trail creation? The great thing about us is we facilitate and convene local organizations, like I said, governments, homeowners associations, all of those that share in the goals of an idea. We can help build a structure to evolve the project vision and implementation. We can also, as I said, do the organizational development, but I also think it's great that a bike shop would want to be involved. That's part of our plan, and our process too is looking at your stakeholders. Your businesses are key for this. Not only can they help invest in the project, but they also can get things out of it as traction, people walking past, people getting involved. We always are looking, like, say, an example is here in my area, Smyrna, Georgia, there's a bike shop along a long distance trail, the Silver Comet Trail. It goes from Georgia to Alabama. And there's a bike shop, and they rent bikes for you to use. They help with fixing bikes. They also have water and snacks, and became a great partner of the Silver Comet because they have the resources to not only get it out to other people that just come in to help, buy a bike or ask questions of bike, but they also get the publicity of the project, bringing in people for the public engagement side, but also, like I said, they can invest in trails. They can help invest with the landscaping, the beautification of the area, and the trail.
Heather, any more in the chat?
Several. We have a project that would address river and riparian conservation, tribal cultural resource preservation, and recreational kayak overuse and negative impact. If the likely outcome is restricted recreational use, would that be a disadvantage for selection purposes?
No, if the conservation use is a high priority, yeah, that could take place first. But I do want to say, and we just finished 2 projects in the state of Utah in restoring rivers in the riparian areas. Oftentimes it's to top it off of providing public access aligns well with the conservation efforts. And then you have to keep those invasives away. So they're developing a program that gets users of the river to come and help participate in addressing those invasives into perpetuity. So it's just developing those kind of programs. So just, we would have to look at it, but yeah, no, I don't think one precludes the other, but I think most times recreation and conservation can mix. You just have to define your desired outcomes, your desired conditions, and we can help achieve those. Great question.
So
Heather, do you
this
have
isn't a question, but this is a statement from Laura. She says she worked with RTCA at Grand Canyon and worked on a 5-year transportation plan to ease traffic through the town of Tucson, and it was an awesome experience. So you have implemented several pieces and had success and had much success this year, especially on holiday weekends. Yay! The expertise provided by RTCA was incredible. I haven't heard too many transportation issues. So she just wanted to mention this, that, you guys do have the ability to look at streets, bike paths, and think of many other,
Strategies.
yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that one. And I just want to highlight again for public land managers on the call, that's where we fit, helping the parks or the federal public lands or the state connect with the communities and help try to solve a problem on a larger scale. And that's a great example. Thank you, whoever put that in, Laura.
I wanted to also bring up another question from the RSVPs is how long do you support a specific project? And this is again, one of those complex questions. It's based upon the staff capacity and the complexity of the project. We found that sometimes a project can go really fast. It can take 1 year or it can take up to 4 years. It depends on not only our capacity, but your capacity. We all know you have most times everyone has another job and they're very interested in this, or everybody has demands on their time. Of course, their holidays. We go at the rate of what you're wanting. There's certain times of year where people are just not going to meet. We found from after Thanksgiving on to January, it's hard to get people to do meetings, not only
Puerto Rico
holidays, but holiday parties. We also found here in the Southeast, for me, sometimes hurricane season interrupts a lot of our work. So it's a varied question on your project. It's again, how fast you meet milestones. Things can go very quickly.
Heather, more questions, or are you good over there on the chat?
There are more questions, Stefan. So can other divisions in NTS other than RTCA submit letters for support?
Absolutely, as a partner for a project, yes. And so we're kind of working with our natural resource team out of Fort Collins to coordinate some work in the Redwood Forest of the park. So yeah, so Park Service is oftentimes one of our specialists that helps us. Some of the specialists in the agency, other than the RTCA program, comes and participates with us on these community and land management projects.
All right, another one. We've been working on a 2-year trail vision. Our next steps include gap filling and investment strategy, performance measures and evaluation, and outreach community building. Can NPS tailor support to meet this phase of project, or is the preference to work with organizations that are early on in development?
No, we can help with that. Like I said, we run a gamut of skills. So we work with all types of the projects, whether it's being the very beginning, the middle, or implementation, even the after effects of the project. How do we deal with maintenance? And we look at how do we deal with capacity and events and grand openings. So we work with all phases of projects.
And speaking of phases, we had an East Coast Greenway question. We're funding design development of a bike lane, which will serve as the East Coast Greenway Trail connecting Anne Arundel County and Baltimore City. Does funding cover design development or implementation? Well, again, this isn't, we don't fund things, but our staff will help with design, layout, and implementation strategies. But I just want to toot our own horn. It was decades ago that RTCA helped develop the East Coast Greenway concept in the nonprofits. And as our staff in many parts of, along the Eastern Seaboard helped locate and design those trails that make up the 3,000 miles from Maine to Florida East Coast Greenway.
And I just add to that, Stefan is using a key word when we say funding strategy. We're not talking about all the time relying on grants. As you know, the grant section sometimes dries up depending on the economy. Sometimes they change their focus. Some grants that were there 10 years ago that we thought would never go away have gone away. Some new ones have popped up. But what we would like to develop is a strategy, not to just rely on grants, but looking at your own resources inside your community. Who can help with what? Maybe it's an in-kind service of another company. We had up in the Northeast where someone had a pavement or cement trucks, concrete, gravel, and offered to donate. So all of those opportunities, and that's where we look at for your stakeholders, what businesses to also involve. Getting everyone involved is the key thing for this, because it's just, you cannot rely just on grants anymore. Grants also don't help with maintenance, upkeep, redoing anything, washouts. Those are things that you're going to have to look for. And like I said, that could be a volunteer based. We help with that. But we just want to make sure that you're looking at all aspects of funding, not just for grants.
You're right. And along those lines, as an example that I shared with the Teens to Trails in Maine, we helped establish that nonprofit, help get it stabilized. And then someone, wise person, came up to me and said, well, you just tell these nonprofits that not only should they do their work, but they should open a coffee shop with ice cream and pizza. These are low cost, high value products that can help subsidize that particular nonprofit effort. So that's just going to what Dee's saying. We always try to think of different ways to help have a sustainable revenue to help maintain these projects. Heather?
All right. NPS does so much. How much staff do you have dedicated to RTCA projects, and what is the average amount of hours time?
Yeah, so we are currently at about 65 staff helping us do projects across the country. And we're, over the years, our budgets haven't kept up. We've gone from 105 down. So we're trying to put some strategies into place to rebuild our capacity to help communities. Congress has authorized us to do this work through various pieces of legislation, such as the 1963 Outdoor Recreation Act, that says that the National Park Service will provide community assistance and conservation outdoor recreation. So we're embedded in law. It's just the budget cycles and the support that we get by congressional members. So hopefully we'll be increasing our own capacity to be able to do more of this work. And again, as Dee said at the very beginning, the national initiatives of changing climate, access to outdoor recreation, preserving lands and waters in America, these are all the things that we do with communities across the country and public land managers. So it's just us educating others that you want more of this work done. If you can help us build our capacity. Our model works really well. It's been around for 30 years, and we have a lot of successes across the country. Heather.
Well, I'd like to add to that, Stefan. We have really dedicated staff who we're very passionate about our work and the successes our partners have. With that, our program is 100% dedicated to our projects. We might have several projects ongoing, and they are also staggered. We might be finishing up a project, we might be starting a new project, or we might be in the middle of a project. But all of our work is RTCA work. So we will give you, again, as much time as needed on a project. Again, it's just trying to work with not only your schedule, but our schedules and our other partners. We just don't have one project alone. We have, say, we might be juggling 6 to 8 projects, depending on the amount of work each project is needed. Some projects could be very small and could be like 6 months of work where it's just helping to do strategic planning. That might be just a couple of months of meetings, and then we have a plan and we're done. Sometimes it may be longer projects where we're trying to start up the whole interest in the project. We might have organizational work. So our work is dedicated just to RTCA work, but we might have several other projects going on at the same time.
And finally, I'm remiss about our capacity. We have done some really creative strategies, such as we work with 4 nonprofits across the country to bring in emerging leaders to train them in conservation and community assistance work. And we're working with Conservation Legacy, Greening Youth, Hispanic Access, and Ancestral Lands. And that's one form of us being able to supplement our capacity. A second way we supplement our capacity is we work with 2 different nonprofits in bringing on experienced workers, people who are over the age of 55 at the end of their career and are wanting to stay in the business. And so we bring them on for a variety of project works. And then finally, there's a brownfield question that I can't find right now, but yes, we help with brownfields and restoring those brownfields to community assets. In that endeavor, over the last 20 years, our program has developed 22 nonprofits across the country known as Groundwork. And those nonprofits are working on brownfields and other conservation and outdoor recreation projects in inner cities and underserved communities, underserved by access to open spaces, underserved by conservation areas, and underserved by outdoor recreation opportunities. So we do have a variety of capacities. We also have agreements that we work with various national organizations. One example is the American Society of Landscape Architects. I hope I said that right. ALSA, so American Landscape. Well, anyway, it's ALSA. Another one is River Network. And there's a variety of great organizations that we've been able to align projects that we're working on with their skills and expertise. Heather?
Okay, there's a lot here, and I apologize if I'm skipping over some of these. I'm going to go back to one, though, that is specific to the application. Can you explain what you're looking for in question 3B? Describe plans for public outreach and engagement.
Yeah, Dee?
Well, that is just to make sure that, one, that you're aware that this is a big piece of our work. What your plans are is, do you have ideas on how to reach not only your neighbors, but your community? Do you have ways to reach other nonprofits, other or self-minded organizations? Do you have some ideas on how would be the best? Unfortunately, we don't live in every city, county, parish, state in America. So we would be relying on you to come up with those ideas of how is it to best reach out to your community. Is it social media? Is it local newspapers? Is it going to churches? Is it going to your local leaders? So that is what we want to know and see, is how have you thought about doing that getting public input?
Okay. Heather?
So what is considered your service area? You're mentioning federal land managers and national parks. Do you only work on projects that support federal lands in some way?
Oh,
Not at all.
Great question. In fact, most of our work are with local neighborhood, local communities, local state governments, nonprofit organizations, school groups, so it's a diverse group. It's usually public, nonprofit kinds of and agencies, organizations of all kinds.
Okay, sorry, Dee, go ahead.
I had a question that kind of answers that too. Let's see, I found it. Our park community is located in a 100-year floodplain. 87% of the residents' properties near this park is located in the 100-year floodplain. Climate change and flood risk resiliency planning is needed. Can RTCA help? So when we say we work with just anyone and not just on that, a big example is in my region in South Carolina, we had a project where flooded from a creek. The neighborhood continuously flooded from a creek. EPA and FEMA went through and did a buyout of certain properties. Well, the community then wanted to know, and this is just not just like saying a larger community, but just homeowners wanted to know what can we do with these vacant lots now? The city didn't have the capacity, and they asked us if we would reach out and help. So yes, we do work on those flood risk and identifying areas, the low-lying areas of where you could put a greenway or a park, but it means that we work on just anything. This was just the HOA that asked us for help. The park that we helped develop was public, anybody could use it. It also included a huge swath of land that they were using as a football field and soccer field that we helped with having the water divert there to flood instead of houses. So I'm hoping I answered both of those questions in one.
Great. And I also want to say, this is becoming a bigger job for us as climate impacts continue to mount, or as disasters. And so FEMA in the state and localities are moving people out of these floodplains after big events. But what they forget to do is plan for what to do with that land afterwards. And so we're helping them realize that this is a problem. Hurricane Sandy created a lot of tension in the Northeast with all these people being moved out and then no one knowing what to do with those properties. So we're getting more into helping do that. In Williams Creek in Texas, I think it's near Austin, similar thing. The city of Austin and FEMA are moving a variety of properties out of the floodplain, and we're helping to build strategies to restore the watershed. Yes, Heather, back to you.
All right. Do you assist friends groups? Since we have a revenue stream through a park entrance fee, I was wondering, unsure if we qualified.
I can really hear that. Did you hear it, Dee?
I did, and yes, we do assist Friends Group. We've worked in the past of helping with the organization development of it and working with the park, doing the strategic planning for it. It depends on, again, what you would like to have us help on. If it is a specific project, a specific property, we would also need to have that property owner or manager involved, because again, we don't want to plan on anybody's property. We don't, if it's a private property, we don't do plans on that. What we do again is all conceptual and based, but we want to make sure that everyone is involved and accepting of the plan and the visioning and the strategies that will go along with that.
Evelyn, as we begin to wrap up, Evelyn, would you pull up the RTCA website? I'd like to show the folks here easy ways to get a hold of us to answer more of their questions. So while she's working to make that happen, we'll go ahead and take another question, Heather.
If our project has 5 local governments working together on an application, can we list one as a primary contact? Is there any specific responsibility or even contract signed that the primary contract applicant takes on?
No. What we say is our work plan is a contract. It's not, again, nothing is binding. We can work with, and we have worked with that many counties and municipalities. What we ask is for who is the project application, that will be our main contact. Then from each of the counties, we ask for a liaison who will be involved in that. So it would be, we would still need one person that we would be the go-to, not only to answer questions about the applications or clarifications about the application, but if selected as a project, it would be, we would need those liaisons to help with formulating the ideas, helping set up meetings, helping find meeting space, helping with the virtual meetings. You have any more on that, Stefan?
No, yeah, and oftentimes what happens when you have a variety of different agencies involved is we'll help set up a structure, a steering committee or some type of organizational structure to help the planning model. And it's a consensus among those agencies of how that gets set up. Hey, Evelyn, would you go? So this is our Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance website. We'll always have it. We'll always have this information. It might start looking different soon because we've been working on it. But I just want to highlight a couple things at the bottom of the website, Evelyn. So first off, stopping here, when we talked about our services and showed you those spreads of trails and water trails and so forth, that's here. Explore how we work with communities. You can download that publication at this site. If you click on where we work, and if you would do that. You can, this is a clickable map. You can click on any state and see what our projects are currently in your state, just to get a view of that. And we'll see which one she picked. She picked Texas in our North Beach Eco Park. So these are the projects for the last year that we're working on. Many will continue to be working on in the next year. Okay, if you would go back to the page, back one more. And then contact us. Would you click on that? So if you scroll down, these are the program managers for each of the states. So if you're in Washington State, you'll want to contact Barbara Rice, and this is her email. Feel free to, with any questions that you have or anything you want to pursue, go ahead and start that conversation today. That's great. And it just shows you all the different states in our program managers. So we can continue to answer your questions. And then finally, if we go back one more, get assistance. Everything you need is on this page about how to apply. Look, the application isn't that encumbersome, but we ask some really detailed questions to help you think through the project. And we'll oftentimes use the application when we select the project to help keep working through those ideas and questions that you began to answer. And then we have some, yeah, this is what the application looks like. Thanks. So I think we'll just take, we're at 21 after, so we have time for maybe one or two more questions before we wrap up. But I just wanted to make sure you knew where you can get your questions answered and how to contact us. Thanks a bunch, Evelyn, and we'll switch back. Anything else from the chat, Heather?
Many. In fact, I'm skipping over a lot. I apologize. We will save this report and share it with Stefan and Dee. So if your question hasn't been addressed, you know, they can get an answer to you. Do you assist for-profit organizations? We'd love to apply for RTCA assistance, possibly with our BIPOC oral history project about public lands. Would this be something that we could apply for as a for-profit?
Yeah, Dee.
And I was going to send this over to you. And I hate to say this is something that really needs to be discussed in more depth. We would have to see what
is the public benefit of it?
Yes. We've had entities, like I said, that are for-profit, say home builders that wanted to have a greenway or a trail through the neighborhood that connects to another trail. So we do work with for-profits. We just need to make sure that it aligns with not only our strategic our strategic initiatives, but that it has a public benefit. And a public benefit for all, not for just those that can afford it.
Right. So an example is we were asked to do some work within a gated community. We wouldn't do that because the public wouldn't have access to that work.
Right.
Okay, Heather.
There was one about COVID. They had submitted an application, but due to COVID, you know, it's been a hiatus. So do they need to reapply?
No. What we asked that, and COVID, again, it threw everybody off, not just our partners, it threw us off because we're a lot we are very hands-on, and we also go visit sites. So it threw everybody off. But no, what we do ask is that a letter is just submitted stating what has been done, what still needs accomplished, or what needs to be accomplished, just for our records. It could be at certain times, like where project partners might have fallen off and they might not have any more interest in it, but maybe another partner wants to pull in. We've had a lot of instances where the main project partner might have moved, might have had a death in the family. So what we just ask is that if you're still interested in working and moving forward with the project, contact your project director. Just do it, and they can help you write. We can give you examples of doing a quick letter of saying, we haven't been able to do this, but we're still looking forward to working on this. And I do want to say, with all of this, please reach out. We are here for these specific answers. We have folks that not just me, I'm the program manager. I will send the question to one of my team members. So we also can give you examples of a good support letter, examples of good applications. If you need examples of, again, a good master plan or a trail plan, we're a resource for all of these. It just doesn't have to be that you have to apply for our services. You might just need some questions on, well, how have others done this? And we put out the question to all of our colleagues. We might have a plan ourselves. So just don't think that you have to do an application. We're here as a clearinghouse of resources also.
Okay, and then back to the question, do we mainly work with public land managers? No, we work with neighborhood organizations, nonprofits, so forth. Here's an example. In Salt Lake City, Utah, one of the schools that has a lot of immigrants, the students getting from their neighborhood to the school had to go along a highway, follow a area around a river. It was very dangerous. We went in and helped build safe capacity and a park at the school, and make those connections from the neighborhood. That consisted of small neighborhood groups coming together and the school saying, we got to do something. So in Anchorage, Alaska, we helped build a 5th grade outdoor school program for all 5th graders in Anchorage. We worked again with nonprofits and schools to help evolve and develop that program that continues today.
Right.
Okay,
And just to add to that,
yeah.
we've had school teachers and school groups ask for our help with connecting the middle school, high school, and elementary school, because they with the trails so that they could pick up younger brothers, older brothers, sisters. So again, it doesn't have to be a huge organization that's working on this. We just ask that you have an idea that we can help formulate.
One last question, Heather, and then I think we're done.
I like this one. It's pretty good. Can you work on a project located along an international border? Stumped you.
Yeah, it's,
yes, we've actually been asked to work on projects in international because of our expertise. So yes, we can work along the border. Again, the biggest thing we need to know is, are all the parties interested and willing to work on the project and are willing to put in resources and that it's wanted and needed for that area?
Yeah, and we worked on the Mexican Texas border there, and getting women on the rivers to help plan and think about conservation restoration. I think it was the Rio Grande. So yeah, we do. Now we sit here and start thinking about, we have some examples.
Okay, tagging on that, how about issues with homelessness and illegal encampments on international borders?
Well, I'll let you take that one, Dee. That's a challenge for every park manager across the United States.
I agree. I don't know. Again, it's depending on what the context of the project would be. If it's still having some notes of outdoor recreation, unfortunately, we aren't a social program that helps with dealing with that. And like you said, everybody, well, not everybody, but those along the border are having those issues. And again, I can say in my neighborhood, we saw one pop up. And those are usually like city and local officials issues that we just don't have that type of capacity. We could again point you in maybe the right direction of a federal entity that might have that knowledge, but we just don't, I don't think that's in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And that's still talking to the program manager or one of our colleagues to talk through the project, because just on the surface, it would be a no, but there might be more to that we're just not getting into the question and getting into what is the need there.
And Heather, thank you for saving those hardest questions for the end. We appreciate it. But we are at our end. And I want to thank all of you for your willing to come out and learn about us. And again, I hope we are starting communication with you in your group. And you know how to find our staff and start following up on what your interests and needs are. So again, thanks for your interest with the National Park Service.
Thank you.
It's a great organization. We work with our friends in the Department of Agriculture. They have many wonderful programs. We have our friends in EPA that have a variety of community programs. And so that's what I mean. If we don't fit, we can help coordinate with other agencies. There's not a lot of us doing this community assistance work in the federal government, but those who do it, as Dee said, really has a passion for it, and we really enjoy it. Thanks for your time. I appreciate your engagement today. Take care, all.
Thanks so much, Stefan and Dee. Very much appreciated. I'll enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.
Thank you.